Hey, I'm Shaye Warner, and you are listening to the Casual Cattle Conversations podcast. Whether you are a seasoned rancher or just curious about the cattle world, this podcast dives into the stories, science, and strategies shaping the future of ranching. Let's get started and keep your herd ahead of the herd. Folks, today we are visiting with Doctors Dutton and Hochhalter about improving calf health during calving season. This episode is especially fun for me because Troy and Joe are owners of the vet clinic I grew up using and still utilize today for my parents' operation, and I even worked there for a summer. Fun fact, it was actually the summer I started this podcast. So this episode is sure to provide value, regardless of the time of year that you calve, and I'm pretty sure that you are all going to get something out of this one. But with that, let's visit with Dr. Dutton and Dr. Hochhalter.
Kick off the new year with your cattle and ranch records organized all in one place. For over 25 years, CattleMax has been built and supported by ranchers just like you. It's the most widely used cattle software in North America. Trusted by ranchers to save time, keep organized, and help make smarter decisions every day. You can start with a free 21-day trial or check out a free online demo to see how it works. Learn more at cattlemax.com/start.
All right, well, Troy and Joe, it is fun to have you back on the podcast. It's probably been 3 or 4 years since I've had you guys on. I know I was still in college the first time we did that one, so thanks for joining me tonight.
Absolutely. Yep, glad to be here.
Okay, so to start off, help the listeners get to know who you are by sharing why each of you are passionate about animal health.
My name is Joe Hochhalter. I am one of the owners here at Steele Veterinary Clinic. We are a predominantly large animal practice. We do a little bit of everything though, mixed animal practice, but the primary focus of our business is beef, cow-calf, and feedlot and backgrounders. We're passionate about animal health because when we can help our clients keep their livestock healthier, it's more profitable for them, and everybody does better when we have healthy animals to work with.
All right, Troy, do you have anything to add?
Well, I'm just saying my name's Troy Dutton. I'm the other owner here at Steele Veterinary Clinic. I think it's really important, we view our animal health as really passionate at our clinic, and I'm excited about being here with our working with our clients in animal health is we really view ourselves as a partner with those clients for animal health and help to be successful in their ranching operations.
Okay, so today we're going to focus on the calving aspect of animal health. So when you guys are thinking about calving, why is it so important that those calves get a good start, a good healthy start, I should say?
We talk about this with our clients at producer meetings and when we're doing hard work. Really, for a good healthy calf to start, I think we start all the way back pre-breeding on those animals to make sure nutrition-wise and everything that they're set up properly so we have proper breed back and all that, and we get a healthy calf coming in the fall and the spring, and healthy animals way more, and our clients sell by pounds, but we want more live calves. But it really starts way back, not just calving season, but really back at conception time.
We also know that those calves that get off to a good start immediately after calving outpace their herd mates. There was a study not done that long ago, and you have to forgive me, I don't recall the timeline on that, but showed that those calves that have some kind of calf foot disease, whether it be scours or pneumonia or whatever the case may be, never do catch up to their herd mates that have been healthy their whole life. So getting off to a good start is critical for those calves.
So when we're talking about calving today, a lot of the experience that you'll be talking from is going to be your producers calving in North Dakota. That's where your clinic is located. So I think what I want to do is kind of break this down into, say, maybe different months or times of the year that producers are calving, and then we can walk through maybe some different steps or things people can keep in mind there. So let's start off with your producers who are calving in, say, January, February, probably running everything through the barn at that point. What are some of the main challenges that they should be aware of or keep an eye out for when it comes to that good health aspect during calving?
For our clients that are using a calving barn, they have a lot of challenges. Usually if they're calving that time of year, they're dealing with weather conditions, and that's why they're having to put everything into the barn. So just making sure that those calves are cared for and dried off and are able to stay warm after calving, making sure that they get adequate colostrum in a timely manner after they're born is important. But probably the biggest challenge that those producers who calve through a barn or run multiple cows through the calving barn will encounter is just sanitation. Keeping those pens clean between different pairs that are coming into the calving pen or maternity pens, and doing what they can to reduce the risk for spread of disease from one newborn to the next or from one animal to the next when you're keeping an animal in tight quarters like that.
I think that's well stated. I think things when we run into issues is, weather plays such a huge role in that time of year up here in North Dakota. And so we run into issues when that calving barn becomes overcrowded or we don't have enough time to do proper bedding changes or sanitation in between, whether you do it in a group housing setting or individual pens, those things where we see issues with illness, whether it's scours or pneumonia due to ventilation issues. So those are all important things that our early calving people have to deal with when they come through a barn.
How often should bedding changes occur in a barn?
So that's kind of a loaded question. It's in a perfect world, and we deal with this when we talk to our clients about specifically Johne's disease risk factors. But in a perfect world, if you're putting a cow-calf pair in an individual pen inside a barn, we would be changing that bedding in between each pair to reduce the risk of spread of disease. That's nice to say, and that's easy to say when we're not having to do the labor, and when you have calves come in fast and furious on a cold day, sometimes that's just not practical. So, that would be ideal if we can do it at least when the bedding becomes damp or soiled. That would be probably the next, level, I guess, if we're going to look at it that way. But anything we can do, again, to reduce the contact that newborn calf who has a naive immune system, if we can reduce the exposure he has to pathogens, the better chance we have for him to reduce the chance of him developing some kind of calf hood disease.
I think just to add on to what Dr. Hochhalter said, sometimes we can't completely change the bedding between those, whether it's individual or pen use from coming through when they're coming through fast, but even getting a new layer of dry bedding out in between those changes and stuff, and so those newborns aren't right on the same fecal material or anything that those previous calves were, it does help. It's not ideal, but we know it does help. Additional bedding, so they're not laying on wet bedding or fecal contaminated bedding right away.
Are there other challenges or unique practices that you see your kind of winter calvers, those producers who calve in the winter, are there different practices you see them implementing more so, or different challenges that they face that you haven't touched on? I know you talked about kind of scours, pneumonia.
Well, I think one of the most overlooked things, everybody likes to put those in an insulated barn where they provide heat or there or not. We know if you put enough cows in there, it warms up, and I think ventilation is a huge thing, and as we see more people going to running through a calving barn in that early part of the year and having an insulated barn and some heat, we do see some pneumonia issues with ventilation. So it's important to remember changing the bedding and having ventilation on days that aren't so cold out is so important to help reduce that risk, because ventilation issues present a real challenge even in the beef industry in those early calvers.
What about when you see producers, instead of that January, February, still shifting to March and April, where there's still some winter, but sometimes spring tries to make an appearance? Are there any differences there that you want to touch on?
Here we're talking about weather again, whether it's out on a pasture or in a calving pen, weather plays a huge role, and it's not always frozen out, it's muddy, and so they're dealing with mud and hypothermia in those calves. So having an adequate calf shelter or someplace to go is so important. you're going to deal with some of the same issues. You got to make sure and change your bedding ideally, and get that make sure that sanitation is appropriate. And we talk about sanitation just in bedding, but if you're treating calves, we want to make sure we talk about the sanitation of your balling gun or your syringes and needles you're using too, to make sure that those are all up to par, because people kind of forget those things in the heat of calving sometimes. So those are just as important, especially if you're running around giving a bolus to a calf. You don't want to keep using that same balling gun time and time again. So equipment sanitation is so important that you're using on the calves in those times. But weather is really the biggest challenge I can think of, Joel.
Yeah, absolutely. And, that rolls back into the overcrowding issue. We have a lot of our clients that will calve in a, quote unquote, calving block or a calving area in that time of year, because they want to keep those cows close to the barn where they can intervene if they have a calving emergency or if they have something going on. But when we keep a large number of cows close like that, like Troy said, we do worry about, is that bedding clean? Are we going to be having more mud and moisture and things like that, which, again, we can have chilled calves. If those calves are really muddy, in a muddy calving area, it increases the risk for naval infection. It increases the risk for calf scours if we're having those calves take their first meal off of a udder of a cow that has some fecal contamination on it. So, going back again to keeping that calving area or calving pen clean and dry as we can, which again often can be easier said than done if we're getting kind of some of those spring rains and some melting going on at that time. But it is a kind of a constant challenge for our producers.
What about separating those older pairs from the younger pairs, or making sure you're moving pairs out to a different facility? Is that something you want to, facility or pasture, is that something you guys want to speak to?
We have some clients that do that. It can become labor intensive to do that in the time of year, but definitely helps decrease the calving density in that pen and spread those animals out. We know from a disease aspect, as soon as you spread them out, the transmission between calves and cows is less. So it's an ideal, but a lot of it comes down to labor issues. A lot of people like to do it, but it's weather dependent. Do they have water sources? Because we still have weather issues and freezing, so they have water in another area or pasture or calving pen that they can provide, and just having the time to do that. But it's sure something that we encourage our clients to do. It doesn't always happen, unfortunately, due to weather issues, but mainly to labor, I think.
Yep, and some of our clients do utilize ultrasound data and things like that in order to manage their calving groups. So they will have, their groups set up based on when they're due to calve, and by using that information, then they can kind of reduce the population in those calving pens at critical times, right? We can have those close-up cows closer to the barn and maybe manage those cows that are due to calve later somewhere else, so that we don't have such a large number of animals in a confined space. So there are obviously, management things, and certainly what works on one operation to manage your way around some of these problems isn't going to be the correct answer somewhere else. But again, those are times when you can talk to your local veterinarian and find out, what has worked for someone else, and maybe make some suggestions how a particular producer might solve that problem.
Do you see more producers shifting to, say, like a May-June calving window to kind of prevent some of these health challenges that may come with weather?
When I first came 25 years ago, everybody started, a lot of people calved in January. Almost everybody had their heifers starting February 15th and their cows rolling by March 1st. And we were pretty much done calving by the 1st of May, middle of May. Now we still have those January calvers, February calvers, and we have people who don't start till April 15th. So we have had more, with the recent storms and weather issues, and some of it goes back to labor issues, why they chose to move those calving dates later. It does help those producers, and like Dr. Hochhalter said, every individual ranch has to make those decisions. We always advise everybody it's really easy to move calving dates back, but you're going to have some different marketing issues down the road. It's going to be different depending on how far you move it back, and then it's real difficult to start moving it up 4 or 5 weeks. It's easy to move it back 4 or 5 weeks, but it's challenging to move it forward. So it has spread out a lot, and that probably over the last 5-10 years, it's even become more of a spread when people start calving.
Yeah, it does seem like that's the trend. I mean, particularly as some of our ranchers are getting older, and again, some of them just have labor issues. They're not able to run all those cows through the barn maybe like they at one time would have. Moving to a later calving period, calving them out on grass does solve some problems for some ranchers. It may bring different problems, but it does solve some of those weather-related issues maybe they would have dealt with in March.
So, is there anything more you want to touch on related to practices or actions producers can take during the calving season before we talk about more preventative actions?
I think, some of those things are really situation dependent. We may make different recommendations for different producers as far as management practices during calving season. I think it really maybe more so depends on what health issues each rancher is facing. Right? So, in some cases we may recommend dipping navels on every single calf. I think that's a good practice. It's something that I grew up doing as a kid at home because we did have a problem with navel ill. We were calving in April at that time, so that was just a practice that we did. For other producers that don't deal with navel infection, it may not be worth the effort. So again, I think it's a pretty case-by-case issue.
I agree. Every rancher is different. They have different issues. And so we really have to work with your local veterinarian to help address those issues that ranch is having.
Hey folks, can I steal your attention away for less than a minute? Ranching is a business, and profitable ones don't happen by accident. If you're ready to run your operation with clarity, confidence, and a strategic plan, my new course, Profit Foundations for Ranchers, is built for you. You'll learn how to define measurable success for your ranch, identify where profit is slipping through the cracks, and put systems in place that help you make better decisions faster. This isn't the theory, it's a practical, ranch-tested business training designed to improve your bottom line. It's the same strategies I use on our own operation. Visit casualcattleconversations.com to learn more, and the direct link is in the show notes. All right, let's get back to the episode.
On the preventative side, do you want to touch a little bit more, even on a broad scope, of what you'd encourage producers to take a look at to make sure that they just have that solid animal health program year-round to help mitigate some of these challenges and illnesses that may come with calving, or even in the summer if it's pink eye, foot rot, whatever it may be?
I think a really good nutrition program year-round is so important. In North Dakota, if we get 4 or 5 months of grazing, that's great. But most of those cows are grazing, later on in the year, some crop residue or something. But a good mineral program throughout, working with a nutritionist to make sure you have a balanced ration. Even if you're not feeding them a TMR, to make sure you meet their adequate energy and protein levels, as all through gestation and through the calving season. I guess we recommend that our producers provide mineral year-round, and if you're feeding through a TMR, you can force feed mineral pretty easily, and we know that's beneficial going into the calving season, and it helps the cow even go back for breed back and forever.
Yeah, absolutely. And at this time of year, we're busy doing pregnancy checking cows, and now would be a good time to look at body condition score on those cows, see where you're at, and see where you want to have those cows at by calving time. As Dr. Dutton alluded to, those cows that are in good body condition at the time of calving are going to, A, hopefully have a healthier calf, B, have better quality colostrum for that calf, and then C, hopefully be in good body condition when it comes time to breed back in the spring. So nutrition is such a vital part of a good herd health program.
Colostrum isn't something we touched on, but I know it's important. So does one of you or both of you want to speak to making sure that calf does get colostrum, or if producers are using a colostrum replacement, what they need to look for to make sure it's high quality?
We talk about it with producers every year. We talk about it at our producer meetings. I think the biggest misconception, or things have changed over the years. When I was growing up with cattle, we always thought you had to have that first colostrum or that first milk in the first 24 hours. Recent research shows that, really you need that colostrum in by 12 hours, and there's even some more recent research that say 6 is even better because you absorb that high quality colostrum into those calves and provides antibodies for that calf until its immune system gets going. So it's really important that that calf gets that colostrum as soon as it can, and by having proper nutrition, you have high quality colostrum. If you're using a product, there's really two different kinds of products, and without naming names, there's supplement products, which are just okay, but then there's replacement products that usually have greater than 150 grams of globulins in them, and so those are products that we recommend to our clients when maybe there's a set of twins, or a cow has a calf and realize she has mastitis, or whatever the situation may be. We don't know if the calf got any colostrum, so we try to get those replacement products into them as soon as we can.
Yeah, I would agree. It's again so important that calf has adequate colostrum, and probably the earlier the better. As Dr. Dutton said, their thinking on the timing of that colostrum has changed so much over the years, but data would suggest the sooner the better, just for better absorption of the immune globulins.
And there's even studies that show that calves that feed adequate colostrum have a better rate of grain and feed efficiency all the way through to the end, and so that's pretty significant. Less health issues, less death loss. Those are important to our producers and every rancher out there.
Is there anything we haven't touched on yet that you want to bring up?
We talk a lot about scours, we talk a lot about pneumonia in these young calves, and those are probably the two biggest health challenges that we face. Obviously, if you're dealing with a specific problem and you're heard discussing that issue with your veterinarian before we get to calving season, actually this time of year is a good time to do it, because it gives us a chance to intervene early. So if we want to start doing a scour vaccination protocol to those cows to help with our calf scour issue in the springtime, now's the time to start thinking about how to implement that, especially if you've never vaccinated your cows for scours before, to prevent calving scours. But the earlier we start thinking about these things, it gives us maybe more options how to address them, and we can find maybe a solution that'll work for a specific ranch. And while one intervention may work for one rancher, doing a different plan just for labor, logistics, or whatever the issue may work for a different person. But start thinking about those things now before we're in the heat of calving and we have a wreck on our hands.
I just had a conversation with a producer about calving when we were PGing earlier, and I was really excited because this is the first time that ranch has actually thought about calving season this time of year and what they can do to help prevent some of those issues. So, it's so nice to help people prevent problems than have to go help them work through a problem, whether it's scours and pneumonia in baby calves. So it's a lot easier and more rewarding for the rancher and for us as veterinarians.
Okay, if producers listening to this take away one thing from this conversation today, what do you want that to be?
Well, if we're talking about things we can do to help a calving season, I think the thing to talk about right now is they're having issues. They need to work with their veterinarian now to help prevent some of those issues they've had in the past, and see what they can work with their veterinarian and nutritionist to help prevent those issues in the future. I think that would be my takeaway.
I would agree with that statement. I mean, as Dr. Dutton said at the beginning of the talk here, we want to be a partner with our producers. We want to be seen as an asset, someone who can come in and help out. But again, we're part of the puzzle. Having a good relationship with a nutritionist, having a good relationship with your extension staff, all those people are there to help our producers succeed.
All right. Well, thank you both again for joining me for this conversation.
Yeah, thank you, Shaye.
Yep, anytime.
All right, folks, remember that any resources that may have been mentioned throughout the show today, we'll put links in the description for you to view there. And the best way to support this podcast and all your other favorite podcasts is to leave a rating or review, or better yet, share it with a friend who's going to find this information valuable, because podcasts still grow best by word of mouth. But with that, happy ranching, folks.
RanchChannel.com. I'll give you just a few seconds to head there on your phone. RanchChannel.com, your farm and ranch network on demand. Bull sales, western events, product information, right at your fingertips on the ultimate cowboy-friendly platform. Want to follow up-to-date markets? RanchChannel.com. No need to dig for information on all these different websites. It's all right there on RanchChannel.com. Y'all are loving it now, aren't you?